Welcome, everybody, to episode 290 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, October 4th, 2017. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by, you probably thought I was going to say J-Trip. However, he is not here. But I do have an excellent replacement for John, and his name is Brad Williams. Brad, what's up, my main man?
What's up? I'm back. Episode 290.
That's right.
I was digging in the archives, so I was on episode number 1 with you, and if you can believe it or not, I'm sure you know, maybe not everyone listening knows, that was almost 10 years ago. You've been doing the show for 10 years.
Well, yeah, off and on there. I've had a couple breaks, but
I don't think there's many people that can say they've had a podcast that is still going, breaks or not, but it's still going 10 years later. So congrats, man. That definitely shows some dedication. I've been on a handful throughout the years.
Yeah, and you've had your own couple different ones.
Had a few shows of my own. In fact, I dug up a little something.
SitePoint, Dreadcast, just to name a few.
I dug up a little piece of nostalgia.
There we go.
I wanted to. I didn't know if you'd start the show this way, but I wanted to hear it. So,
recorded live.
Dude, you missed that, right?
Yes. I miss doing the show on a service that uses actual telephone lines and a phone bridge, so we had the most excellent audio quality on our conversations.
Hey, it worked, and honestly, TalkShoe was big back in the day. I don't know if it's still around or not, but back in the day,
it's still there, actually.
That was helping people get out there and podcast when the technology wasn't as easy as it is now. You didn't have Google Hangout, you didn't have Zoom, you didn't have a lot of these super easy tools, Facebook Live or Twitter Live, to do live streaming.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about it was that TalkShoe had a phone number, and then they gave you a TalkShoe ID number, which was your show. So you'd say, if you want to call into the show, call this number, and then put in the PIN number so-and-so. And that's kind of what got me involved with Xlite, and there was another one out there where you could actually dial phone numbers and stuff from your computer, like your software you could dial in and do that stuff with. So that was pretty cool. But I remember back in the day, like Kim Parcell would call in, but Todd Dunbar, Ryan McHugh, when he was just a youngin'. Hell, he's still a youngin', even 10 years later.
That's back the Wild West days of WordPress.
Yes.
Anything goes, and podcasts ran late into the night, and half the people on them were drunk. And
yes.
Those
7 hour after shows. Let me tell you.
So,
Brad, it's great to have you back on the show. For those who don't know who you are the co-founder and CEO of WebDev Studios. You're also the co-author of the Professional WordPress book series. And you are a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Thank you for your service, sir, for this great country of ours. And you've been developing websites for over 20 years, including the last 10, where you have focused on open source technologies like WordPress. Man, what a professional bio you have.
I know, man. I just put that together 2 seconds ago. On the surface, it sounds like I know what I'm doing, and that's the point of a bio, right? So it's weird, though, when you look at the numbers like that, making websites for over 20 years, and it's absolutely true. I started making sites in high school for fun, and this was mid-90s, and been doing it ever since. Got the bug and couldn't shake it, and here I am still going strong. So it's pretty fun.
I remember back in the day when I first met you, I came across you. You were doing, was it batteries.com? I think you were maintaining.
Yeah, batteries.com. So if you go back to the first episode of WordPress Weekly, and it is a gem, you should definitely check it out if you haven't listened to it. So I was on the show as Brad from strangework.com, which is my blog. And at the time I was working at batteries.com, just starting to dabble with WordPress, getting into the blogging community. I mean, that's how you and I met. Just, I think, commenting. One of us commented on someone's blog, and it's very much like Matt Mullenweg and Mike Little. They, became together from commenting on a blog post. Like, that's how me and Jeff got together, and very similar story. And obviously, we're just as successful at this point in our lives as Matt is. So, maybe not.
Except Matt has a couple of
but it's fun.
More zeros in his bank account, I think.
Yeah, maybe a few more, but it was fun. Like, we were just into the blogging, and we were kind of learning together. So even on that show, like, it was, it's funny the type of stuff we would tell people to do, or like our tips they were kind of like amateurish, obviously, because we were all learning together. We didn't know what we were doing. We just were enjoying it. And when you had the idea of doing a podcast, and I was like, cool, let's do it. I'd never done a podcast before, so I can talk. Let's do it.
Yeah.
10 years later, you're still doing it. So something must be working.
Something must be working. So we got a couple of news stories we want to talk about today. All kinds of different stuff. First thing I want to run by people is this event called Camp Press. Now, Camp Press took place, I believe it was last weekend, and it was organized by Mendel Curlin, and it was at a place called Fry Lake, Oklahoma, and it was on a piece of property that Aaron Campbell owns, actually. And you actually attended this event, and the purpose of this event was to detox or get away from technology and just spend time amongst each other, among your peers. You actually went and attended this event. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, Camp Press. It was actually 2 weekends ago. Get your facts straight there.
There we go. Wow.
Fake news.
Time flies.
Yeah, 2 weekends ago. But yeah, it was cool. So, that is exactly the idea is essentially geeks getting together, people, in the technology space. It was not all WordPress people, which I didn't even know going in. I just assumed it was because of the name, right? But there was about half of us. There's about 16 of us were there. About half were not WordPress at all. They were just, geeks. They enjoyed technology and different facets of technology. So, Mendel mentioned the idea to me last year at some point of just, hey, do you like to camp? What do you think about just a bunch of geeks getting together and going camping, unplugging in the middle of nowhere, sitting around campfire, get the guitar out, sing songs. And I was like, that sounds awesome. I camped a lot when I was young. I think that sounds like a lot of fun. And when he kind of announced it and got all the details out there, I signed up early. I wanted to try different things outside of WordCamps. I think WordCamps are safe space for most of us, our comfy space. They're fun. We know a lot of people. We make a lot of new friends, but they're safe, and they're awesome to go to. I highly recommend WordCamps if you haven't been, but someone like myself, I've been to, 50, 60 WordCamps over the years. I'll still go to WordCamps, but I want to try different things. So I feel like this was a safe leap outside my comfort bubble, if you will. Because I did know a few people, but I didn't know most people. And yeah, we literally drive an hour outside of Oklahoma City, which if you've ever been to Oklahoma City,
I have one
hour any direction, you're guaranteed to be in the middle of nowhere, like absolutely in the middle of nowhere. And that's where we were. So it was just a bunch of like-minded people getting together. Mendel put together a very loose itinerary, which we promptly did not follow. And he had like 2 things scheduled a day, and we did neither of them because it was just really organically happening of, look, we're just having fun. Like, we don't need an agenda. We're all by the lake hanging out. Cool. We don't need to go back and do something else. We're having fun right here. And so we quickly kind of just went with it, and it went great. I met a lot of cool people, unplugged for the weekend, kind of got back to nature, cooking big T-bone steak on the fire and, s'mores and, sharing stories and songs. And there was a guitar being passed around. And, it's just a really fun time. I didn't know what to expect going in, but I really enjoyed it. And I think I think a lot of people would enjoy it as long as you're okay with the outdoorsy thing. Like, that's obviously not for everybody. I have a number of my friends in the community that said, nope, it's not a hotel. I'm not going. Cool.
But there are cabin, shower and bathroom facilities, swimming lake. So, it's not like you were totally in the boondocks or you had to create your own shelter out of sticks and stuff.
There's toilets and showers and, but you are camping. You're around campfires, you're around smoke, you're outdoors, there's bugs, there's animals. In fact, it's funny, the picture on WP Tavern of the whole group, there is a dog in that picture. Nobody knows who that dog is. That is a random dog that just showed up and just hung out with us. So that dog wanted to, disconnect as well. Random dog, wasn't Aaron's. He had no idea whose it was. So it's kind of a funny story about that picture. But yeah, so you had the amenities, but it was very, very much like a summer camp. Had a very much, kind of summer camp back in, when you were a kid, kind of that feel. Which was cool, so it was a good time. I definitely recommend it. Mendel's actually announced 2 events next year already. One's in Iceland. Mm-hmm. So if you're really looking for an excursion, go to there. And I think the other one's in Texas, but I
think it's in Austin. February of next year, Austin, Texas, I believe.
I recommend it. It's fun. It's different, disconnect, meet some new people, have conversations, bond a little bit, get away from the computer screens. It's good for you.
So 2 questions for you. The first, when he announced that this event was going to be taking place at this time of year in Oklahoma, I said, well, it's either going to be 110 degrees or, it could be chilly. What was the weather like?
It was warm for sure. When I left Philly, it was pretty nice out, like, 70s, just kind of beautiful weather. And I got there, it was closer to 90 during the day. At night, it was, it cooled off, once the sun went down. It was funny because the first night we built a fire. Everybody wanted to be around the fire, but it was warm. The sun was still up. So we formed a circle next to the fire, right? So we're all in a circle next to the fire. And then it gets dark and we're kind of observing each other. Like we're literally in a circle and there's no fire in front of us. The fire's next to us. We look like idiots right now. So we quickly move over and actually surround the fire like you're supposed to. And so it was a little warm, but at night it was nice. And there was a lake we swam in a lot. So you're in the lake was warm, felt really good. So you're in the water cooling off. So it wasn't, it wasn't uncomfortable.
And for you personally, what was it like to disconnect? I mean, did you literally have no cell phone signal?
It was super spotty. I went in expecting no cell phone signal. It was funny because you could be standing somewhere and be completely dead zone and walk maybe 20 feet and have 4G. And then walk another 20 feet and be a dead zone. So it was extremely spotty. For me, I have a 2-year-old son. So I'm glad there was a little bit of service. So in case, just for my peace of mind, I know that if my wife needed to get a hold of me, she could. But most people obviously didn't keep devices on them and didn't care whether there's service or not. So, but it was definitely remote.
So overall, you had a great time, and you'd highly recommend other people probably check out this event. Sure. As we already said, Iceland and Austin, Texas.
Wear shoes and socks. I wore sandals, and I got chiggers.
Oh,
I don't know if you've had chiggers. They suck.
I have not, but I mean it's really scratchy and itchy, right?
Yeah, for a couple of days. So wear socks. Don't be an idiot like me and wear sandals everywhere. But you're outdoors, so just remember that.
Yeah, well, at least you didn't get poison ivy, so you got that going for you.
No poison ivy, so it was a great time. I highly recommend it if you're into the kind of the outdoors or you want to try something different. I mean, Mendel did a great job. Aaron did a great job. Yeah, I think they're going to go back to Fry Lake. It sounds like maybe once a year. So if you want to kind of go back to where the original was, which I will plan to be there as well, keep an eye out for that. I'm sure they'll announce it soon.
All right. So the next thing I want to talk about kind of relates back to the tavern. I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but we've had to turn on comment moderation back on the tavern. Last week we ran talked to you about Donate WC. It's a new initiative that's created to help sponsor people, to fund them to go to WordCamps. It's a pretty cool initiative. And I asked Ines, I don't know her last name off the top of my head, but I asked her, I said, after we wrote about the story on WP Tavern, did you receive an uptick in donations? And she said, well, no, not really. But after it was pointed out that some of the comments on the site about her, and including the one that was impersonating her, other people in the community chipped in, and that's when the donations started to tick up, and she eventually was able to successfully hit her crowdfunding goal of €1,000. So that's not really the way that the tavern wanted to help out, even though we were successful in doing that. And there was someone who was trying to impersonate her and were saying some nasty things. So Sarah and I ended up in a discussion where we were trying to say, okay, what we're going to do about this. And we could either open up registration on the site, which I haven't had open registration on the tavern since it started, or we could turn comment moderation back on and go back to moderating every comment. And we've actually turned moderation back on. So now we have to moderate every comment. And there's a handful of people on Twitter in the WordPress community that give us hell all the time because of the comments that we allow on the site. But I want to get one thing straight here, is that the commentary in the tavern, albeit sometimes ludicrous, stupid, way out there, tinfoil hatty, whatever kind of weird acronyms you want to call, maybe sometimes even insulting, depending on how you look at it. A lot of the commentary on the tavern would not be published probably anywhere else, especially not on the Make blogs or official sites, WordPress sites. just because of the people who are running those, and those are the same people who have the ability to approve comments. Are typically the same people who do not like the kind of commentary that we see on the tavern. So that's what we're doing. I just, for any of our listeners out there, if you comment on the site and you don't see your comment appear immediately, that's why. Everything's out in moderation. But there you go, Brad. Comments, do you or don't you read the comments on the tavern? Come on, tell me.
Sometimes, depending on the topic. I mean, so you're telling me you allow comments and you have trolls in the comments. That's
well,
surprising.
Yeah, I mean, trolls. I mean, look,
comments are tough.
I've got this. I look at it this way: that the tavern is a highly trafficked website, and the comments there are visible. And if you're going to be an idiot with what you say there on the site, then it's going to reflect on you poorly, and it's going to show up in search engines. So you're only doing yourself a disservice by acting like a jerk and writing these stupid things that we publish on the tavern. But then on the flip side, other people say, well, I wouldn't have this stuff. I wouldn't publish their stuff on our site just because of the nature and the things of what they say. So we're very lackadaisical in what we allow or what we publish as far as comments on the tavern. But now with the moderation policy back into effect, we're being pretty strict in what we're publishing now on the site. And that's just the nature of comments, man.
I mean, every project we do for a client, almost every project, pretty much everything we build, there's some type of a post, right? A post, an article, whatever they want to call it, blog posts, right? And there's always a discussion around, should we allow comments? And it always goes back to, well, we bring up kind of the pros and cons, right? And the biggest con is the management of it, the oversight, the approval, especially on a corporate website. They have to moderate it. They have to, right? Because if they don't, who knows what's going to show up in there? And it can, it could even lead to legal action, So it is such a big undertaking, moderating comments. Even if you're not that high of a traffic site, it still is a lot of work when those comments come in. And then, kind of being the comment police, like, where do you draw that line? Maybe someone has a different view from what you wrote about, and maybe they're saying it in a bit harsh of a tone, but they're not being disrespectful or name calling or anything like that. It can be a fine line of where you draw that line in terms of what's allowed, what's not allowed, and you become the judge and the jury and the executioner, in a sense, in terms of the content you're allowing. So you're gonna get negative feedback because of that too, because there'll always be that side that thinks you are leaning towards one side or the other on what you're allowing, and it may not be.
Or if I don't allow something, oh my God, the censorship. You're censoring me. You're censoring these viewpoints, when really, no, I don't want your crap on my website. I mean, it's as easy as that.
Yeah, I see more and more sites getting rid of comments, even big sites. Like a big one recently around here is Philly.com. Big, news site. I mean, the comments were just like a troll haven. I mean, just the worst of the worst. Like, whatever the worst type of comments you can think, they were there and they allowed them. Like, it was crazy. And they finally announced that they're just shutting it down completely. They're just getting it. No more comments, period. Because they just couldn't manage it. They either had to have it all on or all off, and they just did not have the resources to properly vet those comments as they came in. So they after years of that going on, they finally just shut it off, said no more comments, period. And I think we're starting to see that a lot more, because these companies just don't have a team of people that can monitor comments all day long. It's not a profitable thing for them.
So Web Dev Studios has probably built a lot of websites in its time of existence. Would you say that the majority of them you pretty much turn either both blog and commenting off, or maybe just commenting, those components of WordPress, you just turn them off?
The majority have no comments. The majority do have a blog, whether it's a blog or, like I said, articles or whatever, some type of, blog content. And I would say 99% of them do not have comments. They're disabled completely. It's just too much work, and they just don't have the time for it. So, I don't know. It goes back to, well, if you really have something big to say, maybe you should write a blog post, or hell, at this point, you can just tweet, because we're going to be able to tweet.
Yeah, you should just do a tweet.
10,000 character comments, right? So we just tweet it out, right? So I don't know. It's a double-edged sword. Like, I could definitely see there being a good room for it. Like, there are some great comments and discussions that happen on the Tavern. But then those really, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, those really sensitive subjects, people get heated. It's just like anything political. People get so heated by it that they go from trying to have constructive arguments to like just name calling, or just, you're wrong, screw you, whatever. And then it just goes down a very bad path. And that happens so much with, especially like political and, just those sensitive topics, because people are so passionate about them. I can only imagine the comment wars around JavaScript frameworks that you guys are having on your site now.
Hey, it's good for traffic, baby. That's all I'm worried about. No, I'm just
going down that rabbit hole.
All right, Brad, have you heard of the word or the project named Gutenberg? No, never heard of it. All right, so come on, man. So Gutenberg is you must not read the Tavern. Okay, you just read the comments sometimes. But Gutenberg is the new editor that's in development, and Joost de Valk, a significant figure in the WordPress community, of course, author of the WordPress SEO WordPress plugin, which is very popular and installed on a couple million sites nowadays. He published an article titled "An Alternative Approach to Gutenberg," where he outlines some concerns they have as a team with regards to the direction that Gutenberg is going. It's the release strategy in terms of how soon how optimistic Matt is on getting it in 5.0, which, if everything goes into place, could be by the end of this year or maybe early next year. And he talks about the issues of plugins in Gutenberg and how they're going to interact with them, the MetaBox issues and accessibility issues as well. And he says he comes up with 3 things that they believe that should be done. He says, first of all, they should keep the blocks idea, as it's a good one. And he thinks that they should start iterating slowly. If they want to give the admin a modern makeover for 5.0, it's doable, but they don't need to change how MetaBoxes are rendered for that to happen. The second thing is, he says there's no need to move the toolbar with the bold, italics, all the different formatting tools away from where it is. But that doesn't mean it's a good thing to replicate Medium, and it would just require more retraining than the team building Gutenberg seems to realize. And the third point is there should be focus on making sure both the backend editor and the front-end output of Gutenberg meet basic accessibility requirements. And many of the comments on the article agree with the sentiment and viewpoints of Gutenberg. And we've talked about this on the show. We've covered this on the Tavern, where there are so many developers that have their eyes keen on what's going to happen with the MetaBox issue. Because at first it looked like they were going to do away with MetaBoxes and stuff everything into this expanded settings or advanced settings area below the post content. But so many developers and site builders have said that meta content could be incredibly important for inputting values and things of that nature into the site. And you can't just do away with MetaBoxes. You got to somehow find a way to provide backwards compatibility for the MetaBox issue. But as far as accessibility goes, MetaBoxes and other issues involved with Gutenberg, there's this viewpoint that the way Gutenberg is now is kind of what's going to be put into WordPress core. And it's there's no way. I mean, Matt and the team are they're well aware of the issues that lay before them with MetaBoxes, with backwards compatibility, with the type of sort of sticker shock this is going to give users. And I think all that stuff is going to be addressed at one point or another before Gutenberg officially hits core, whether that's 5.0 or whether that's 5.1 or what have you. But Brad, have you been following Gutenberg or the team at Web Dev Studios? And if so, what are your guys' thoughts on this project? And maybe are you guys doing any planning on how it may impact both current and future clients on how you build sites?
Yeah, so Gutenberg, right? It's big buzzword. Everyone's kind of watching it, checking it out, wondering what's going to happen with it. I mean, yeah, we're definitely watching it. I think, Joost has a great article. Check it out. I read it. I retweeted it, so I officially endorse it or not. I don't know what that means. But I think he makes a good point, and this is kind of where we're at too, as an agency that builds sites with WordPress, and we have a number of plugins out there too. That until Gutenberg is more in a final state, we can't actually invest time in getting anything ready for it, right? So we can't invest time in updating our plugins. We can't invest time in talking with our clients and getting a plan so that they're ready with however their custom, or their WordPress dashboard is configured and laid out. There's no time, right? So until it's more final, once it's a little more final and it's like, hey, we're in, release candidate for Gutenberg or whatever, or at least a beta, we just can't move on it because it's a moving target right now. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges and concerns that a lot of us have is we're kind of standing by like, okay, I think on the base, most people agree Gutenberg is a good idea, right? At the core, what they're trying to do. It's just the execution of it that has everybody very concerned. Like, is this going to get shoved into WordPress before meta boxes are tackled or before accessibility? Because if it is, and it will immediately be disabled, upon upgrade for many, many people, a lot of people, all of our clients will probably disable it at first because we need to know how it's going to impact, right? And we're talking, these are enterprise level, large scale clients where, even getting a new plugin approved has to go through legal, and has to be approved that, yes, we can use that plugin on our site. Yes, it's, of the right license. Yes, it's, passes security checks, whatever. So even to take a plugin that's on WordPress.org and put it on some of these sites can take a month or two. So imagine, completely changing how the editor in WordPress works and how, they're going to work with content and how they're going to build out pages and post and whatever, and completely flipping that upside down in a single release and saying, all right, here you go. It's going to be a slow rollout. It's going to have to be a slow rollout for a lot of these sites, So I know they're taking a good, honest look at it and working towards it. I just think we're all a little bit like on edge because we need to see where it lands. And then it's a matter of, all right, once it's finalized, how long are we going to have to get ready for it? It doesn't feel like we're going to get like a month or two. It feels like we're going to get, all right, it's finalized. It's coming out in this release. Get ready, and we're all going to be scrambling like, shit, what do we do? So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be seen. I'd put money it's not coming out this year.
Yeah, I'd probably say that as well, especially with the delay in the well, first we're going to go React. No, we're not going to go with React. And then Facebook does an about face. Okay, React's now MIT. Everything is cool. And then Matt's like, well, we're still going to talk about all these things with all these various frameworks. And now they're talking about creating a framework agnostic. By the way, there's a drinking game. So every time I say framework, people are already loaded by now. So that was quick. But you'll be able to build these Guten blocks, is what they're calling them, in whatever framework you choose, whether that's Vue or React or some of the other ones that are Preact, whatever, just name them. But so they're working on that. But yeah, I mean, as Gutenberg as is today, it's not going to be the Gutenberg we see rolled in the core at the end of the line. I think it's going to be a hell of a lot better, of course. I think the accessibility issues will largely be addressed, and I believe they can't. The post meta box issue, I think, is a blocker. You can't just do away with them because there are so many plugins out there. Like Yoast was saying, that if you were, they have no integration. They can't integrate the Yoast WordPress SEO plugin into Gutenberg now because it just doesn't work. There's no post meta box support. So that's something they're going to have to work on and get figured out.
That has to be resolved. I mean, I think one of my personal concerns when Gutenberg was first announced and kind of watching it is I have flashbacks to like post formats, right? So
yeah, that's been brought up a few times.
This is taking it back a little bit, but I mean, post formats was a big topic. It was, debated back and forth how flexible it should be, whatever. They really held the ground with the fact that you can't register your own post formats, and these are what they are. And when you look at post formats, it was identical to Tumblr. Like we were playing catch up to Tumblr, and it was like it felt like Matt was laser focused on we have to beat Tumblr, and this was a few years ago, right? So Tumblr was all the rage back then. Now it's things like Medium or even like Wix and Squarespace we're seeing a lot of. So my concern is WordPress from time to time feels like we're trying to chase after a competitor rather than be innovative. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the direction we're going is to, you know, recreate Medium or recreate, you know, a Wix or Squarespace builder. I think the goal of what they're trying to solve is a good goal. Make it easier to use WordPress. That's really at the core of what they're trying to do, right? Make it easier, because WordPress is not as easy as we all think it is. But I just hope that we're not being too influenced by some of these competitors out there like we have been in the past. And then look where post formats went. Nowhere. Like, nobody uses post formats that I know of. We have never used post formats. So, and someone will tweet and say I'm an idiot and they use them for everything, but the vast majority, from what I know, people don't use post formats.
I like to meet that person. I like to talk to them.
So
if they tweet you that.
And we really, I know we did that because of Tumblr. I don't care what anybody says. That's how I feel. So those are my thoughts. You know, I get the goal here. Make WordPress easier to use, because it's not easy. My family comes to me and says, hey, I want to do a website. Should I use WordPress? I'm like, well, if you do, use WordPress.com, because you should not be self-hosting. I don't want to even have to train you how to do that. And even WordPress.com is not that easy. So I've sent people to Wix and Squarespace before, because I'm like, or Shopify. Oh, I got to start a store. Just go to Shopify. It's easy.
So last week's episode, which ironically is titled "Where Did WordPress's Ease of Use Go?" It's great you bring this up. And I'll ask you, since you're on the show now, let me just ask you, in the time that WordPress has been around and you've gotten, since you discovered it and until now, I'll ask you, where did WordPress's ease of use go? Because at one time, as I said in the show, it seemed to me like one of the reasons so many people gravitated towards WordPress is because it was easy to use. It was one of the things everybody told each other, yeah, use WordPress. It's easy to install and it's easy to use. But it seems like there are so many people, and I even agree today, that WordPress is not easy to use. And if I have to help somebody with their WordPress site, I turn into an unhappiness engineer. I don't like it.
Wait. I actually have a Jeffro sound effect for that.
Well, there we go.
That's the unhappiness engineer sound effect. I mean, it's a good question. I think it just inherently happened over the years as WordPress evolved, right? So if someone said, hey, I want to start a blog, what should I use? Yeah, WordPress is still pretty easy for a blog, right? It's you install it. The 2017 or any of the core themes work great out of the box. They look pretty nice. There's some other themes they could grab. Like, the blogging point of it works, and I think the fact when we say it's gotten harder is because less and less people are using it for blogging. They're using it for a small business website, or they're using it for e-commerce, or they're using it for something else. They're not just blogging. Blogging is probably a component of that site, but. So when people say it's hard, I don't think it's because, I think it's because just people stopped using, or not as many people are using WordPress to blog. They're using it for other things. And yes, to set up a small business website on WordPress is not that easy. And then you tell people, okay, well, go and get a nice theme that looks great. And you grab that theme, where it's a free or premium one, and I guarantee you it's going to add page after page after page of options and settings and customizer stuff and drag and drop and whatever. And that's not easy. It's not easy for people to do. They install a theme that looks great in the screenshot and looks like garbage on their site because it has no data and no content. They don't know what to do. I've mentioned it before with page builders. Everyone's going towards page builders. Page builders are great. Beaver Builder or Divi or whatever you're using. They're awesome, but you still have to have a good eye for design. I don't. So I'm trying to make a site with Beaver Builder just for fun. And it looks terrible because I don't have a design eye. I just suck at design, right? So I'm trying to move things around and select fonts and colors. I'm like, cool, I can move stuff around, but I still have no idea what looks good. I know it doesn't look good the way I'm doing it, but I don't know how to make it look good because I just don't have that eye. So I think as WordPress sites have gotten more complex, and the demand for WordPress has obviously gotten more complex, the experience has gotten more complex. And I don't think there was any one particular thing that caused it. And I think it's honestly just the evolution of WordPress. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is, right? And so now we're trying to take steps to resolve it with things like Gutenberg.
Yeah, and as we mentioned last week, you look at web hosting providers now are all starting to come up with ways to create a great end-to-end user experience for people installing WordPress on their hosts. Like Bluehost has one, GoDaddy has one with GoDaddy Pro. Yeah. Liquid Web, I believe, might have something similar to that, like an onboarding process where you go through maybe a questionnaire that the user goes through, and maybe a couple of different plugins are installed for you, and you have a theme. And by the time you get through and you install your WordPress site, you're pretty much 75% of the way there in terms of being able to launch your site. You just have to plug in a few more things or type in some data. But WordPress today is incredibly easy to install thanks to all of these web hosts. But after that, with the setup and installation part, that's where things get tricky.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. The hosts have made it super easy. I played around with the GoDaddy managed stuff a few months back, and it was point and click. And then it was like, hey, do you have a domain here that you want to use on this site? And sure, I have a domain I'm not using. I literally clicked my domain, and it configured everything on both sides of the house, like WordPress and my domain and DNS updates. And boom, I was under this .com within a couple minutes of and no code, no WP config changes or anything like that. And completely up and running, like you said, which is awesome. So yeah, it's not the installation, it's not the setup. That's gotten easier. It's less than 5 minutes at this point. So it's what happens after configuring that site to get it to look like that other site that you like, or that competitor site or whatever. That's where it gets very complicated very quickly. And it's something we need to keep working to solve, or else ultimately, WordPress usage is going to plateau and start shrinking.
Yep. So there's a new project out there. It's the WP. It's a new WP CLI based project, which aims to extend checksum verification to plugins and themes. And checksums, for those who don't know, it's a method of verifying the integrity of files. So about 3 years ago, WP CLI added the capability of verifying WordPress core checksums using the MD5 algorithm. And this is useful because it allows developers to see if any files have been modified or compromised. Now, these checksums are handled via WordPress's official API, and the WP CLI contributors are planning to extend this infrastructure to plugins and themes hosted on WordPress.org, which would be a huge benefit. Would really increase the perception and actual security of WordPress itself, and it ought to be really quick to do because the command line interface. So they're working on this project. There's already an existing project out there, and they're sort of working with Torsner on putting that together. Now they're going to be, it's in the initial stages. They're going to be working on doing these checks and trying to get it to the point where it's not wasting bandwidth with the WordPress.org servers. And once they get everything put together, hopefully they have something that they could host on WordPress.org servers, and then everybody can have in core the ability to do these types of commands to verify checksums. But that would allow you to be able to realize if files have been tampered or not, if you have the actual version of the files that you need. So pretty cool project there. And as an agency, you guys probably love WP CLI, huh?
We do. I mean, I think anyone
who's a geek in WordPress loves CLI. The command line interface people.
It is. I mean, it's and I'm not a command line interface guy. Like I like a good GUI. You know what I mean? I love a good GUI, but CLI is great, and especially how we use it a lot is around like migrations, right? So, bringing massive amounts of data from some other system into WordPress. It is great for that. And the fact that it's command line, you're not doing it in the browser, we're going to have timeout issues and things like that. Or you have to do some crazy, JavaScript, Ajax type stuff to keep reloading. You just do it with the command line. It just goes, right? It runs and runs and runs till it's done, which is awesome. So yeah, I mean, CLI is great. I mean, I love the fact that, and this is a little old news, I guess now, but the fact that there's kind of official support behind it between, with Automattic and a lot of the hosting companies. I think it is such an important tool for developers, and all of the hosts have it now. I mean, every single host has it. So they absolutely should be supporting this tool because it helps, it helps the people on their platforms work with, the sites that they need to work with. So yeah, I love seeing the fact that, they're pushing up new stuff. Checksums are great. Better security is great. Anything we can do around that in WordPress is a big win. So
there's a pretty big milestone for a plugin that a lot of people out there use called Regenerate Thumbnails by Alex Mills. It recently passed 5 million downloads, so that's a pretty significant number. Actually, the plugin was first released nearly a decade ago in August of 2008 during the days of WordPress 2.6. And Sarah Gooding wrote about this milestone on WP Tavern. She used a screenshot, and you can see the screenshot from Alex's blog of WordPress 2.6. It's just funny looking at the sort of vertical horizontal menu and the light blue.
That's pre 2.7, so that was 2.5 or 2.6 or you said that 2.6. Yeah.
Yep. Regenerate thumbnails is used to retroactively generate new thumbnail sizes for past uploads. A lot of people use it because all these themes nowadays, if you end up switching themes and the new theme has different image dimensions for featured images or maybe to show up next to a category or what have you, it'll actually regenerate the thumbnails for your images so that they're compatible with your new theme. And that's why it's so helpful to so many people. And Alex says that he's actually working on a rewrite right now, and he's actually going to be using Vue.js, the Vue JavaScript framework. Yes, take another drink. As the interface for the plugin. It's also going to use the WordPress REST API, so that's pretty cool. And it's available on GitHub. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. He says one of the pieces of advice he has is that outside of some updates last month, the last real changes to the plugin were made in 2012. He says he wrote the plugin pretty well the first time around, and the key to its success and not having to update it all the time was because it utilized core functions and files built into WordPress. A lot of plugin developers want to reinvent the wheel and bundle in all this stuff that maybe they're not aware of already exists in WordPress core. So, sometimes when things change, they have to lay out those updates. But congrats to Alex Mills. He's got a lot of other cool plugins out there as well. And I want to give a shout out to him and offer my best for him on a quick recovery. He's battling leukemia. And he just published an update on his blog not too long ago where it seemed like it went into remission and then the leukemia kind of mutated into something else. And now he's on a different medication to battle that type of mutation for leukemia. And we wish him all the best and hope he gets better soon. Alex Mills is a pretty cool guy and a great member of the WordPress community. Yeah,
he is. I wish you the best, Alex. This is a plugin that we've used, for years. And I mentioned kind of the idea of if you're doing massive amounts of something, data crunching in the browser, how you have to, use Ajax or something to refresh. Well, that's exactly what this plugin does. It essentially does it in batches, kind of behind the scenes, right? So it'll crunch, I don't know how many at a time. And then, so it doesn't time out, right? That's the whole point. And it works great. And this is a really useful plugin. We use it all the time, and especially for migrations, we're bringing a bunch of content and they don't have, the images sized correctly, or we need to regenerate them because something changed throughout the development process. I mean, this is the go-to.
Now, quite a few people in the comments suggested, why isn't this in WordPress core? If so many people are using this and it's so useful, why isn't it in core? Do you think it's core material? I mean, would you mind if this was in core?
I don't think it's core material. I mean, the average user probably would never need something like this. It's usually people who are doing a redesign of their site or, swapping themes maybe. So that might be a more likely use case for the average user. But I mean, everyone's like, put it in core. Like, we need to calm down with that. Like, it's a plugin. Like, literally, you go 2 clicks and it's installed and you run it. Like, is that hard to do? It doesn't need to be in core. It's great outside of it. And honestly, once things get into core, the development can quickly slow down because now it's in core. If anything is getting enhanced or updated, you more than likely have to wait for the next major version. So plugins are fast. They can iterate quickly, keep it as a plugin. I think it's a great plugin. Everybody loves it. This plugin actually is not as old as this podcast, by the way. So this plugin came out in August, but this podcast started in January 2008. So your podcast is older.
Wow. How about that? I thought the plugin was older than the show, but I started in January. Thank you for that tidbit of information.
Remember that because in a few months, it's going to be the 10-year anniversary. So I expect this episode, we'll get all the old gang back together and talk about our original plugins of Picks of the Week.
If I could find a way to delay the show, I could also do the episode 300 in January next year. So, a big shebang.
Just do 299.1, 299.2.
Yeah, right. Semver, I guess is what they call it.
Buy yourself some time.
So speaking of frameworks, hopefully it's time for a refill. But Drupal core maintainers have proposed adopting React for their administrative UI. So WordPress is in this state of limbo right now, where they're trying to decide which framework to adopt to manage all the JavaScript components, UI components, and WordPress. And the discussion's been around, Vue and React and what have you. Well, it appears Drupal has decided that React looks to be the most promising option, given its expansive adoption by developers. They say it's opinionated and component-based nature, and it's well-suiting to building new Drupal interfaces in an incremental way. That's by Dries Buytaert. I have a hard time with names. That's the hardest thing about doing a podcast or an audio show, Brad, is getting people's names right. It's
Dries. I always revert back.
Or Dries, maybe. I just call him Dries.
Yeah, I always want to say Geist Baltar, like Battlestar Galactica. When I see his last name, I'm always thinking Baltar.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know.
But Dries has formally proposed that the Drupal community adopts React after discussion and experimentation has taken place. So there's a big proposal. There's all kinds of things over there in the Drupal community. And thankfully for them, React is now MIT. And because of the patent grant in the previous version of the license for React, it was not even a recommendation or consideration for Drupal. But now with the license change, React seems to be the way to go. And as for WordPress, who knows what's going to happen in core. But whatever framework they decide to use or adopt as for core will, in fact, become like the de facto standard. And now when you have everybody learning JavaScript deeply or working on their plugins or building JavaScript UI interfaces in their plugins, they'll probably end up using React simply because WordPress core chooses to use it or chose to use it. So there you have it. So we'll have to look and see if this actually becomes a thing in the Drupal world. But there you go. They're looking to go React.
Frameworks.
Frameworks. There you go. And by the way, WP Campus, very cool, higher education focused WordCamp type conference or WordPress type conference. They're accepting applications for the hoster conference in 2018. So the application process will close on October 31st. And you have to have all kinds of requirements, such as a university. It has to be held on a university campus. It has to be available on a certain time frame, and there's all these other things with it. The previous one was held in Buffalo, New York. Videos for that conference are available online for free. And from all the people I've spoken to who have attended WP Campus, it's a very well-run and organized event that Rachel Cherry and a few other members of the WordPress community put on. And if you have a focus or knack for WordPress in higher education, there you go. There's a niche conference dedicated to you.
Yeah, I have not been, but I think it's a great topic and a very important topic around WordPress and higher ed. And it's, we work with a number of institutions that use WordPress for various parts of their site or maybe their entire site. So I think having an entire conference dedicated to this is awesome. I have my only complaint is every time I see it, I think Krampus. Like,
yeah,
the opposite of Santa Claus.
Yes,
half demon. Which, side note, would be a pretty cool WordPress conference too. WP Krampus. Maybe I'll have to look into that. But it's definitely cool, and I love these type of events, like you mentioned, these kind of niche events. And this, even for a niche event, it's still a pretty wide reaching, right? Like there's universities all over the world that use WordPress, so it's still pretty widely accepted in the universities. But these are the type of events I love because they can be very focused on that industry and very focused on the challenges and the successes of how those industries are using WordPress or want to use WordPress or just the web in general. So definitely one I want to get to someday. So I'll be real curious to see where they end up going.
And if you use Jetpack out there, they just released Jetpack 5.4, which has a couple of bug fixes. There's a date picker that's been added to the contact form editor. So this allows you to As visitors, they can submit delivery dates, birthdays, whatever else you need a date for their submission. There's been improvements to comments and theme compatibility. So now when people are typing in comments, the comment form will adjust vertically automatically instead of having to move a bar or toggle anything. So that's nice. And they've also added welcome screens to their paid plans. There's also Jetpack Search, which is powered by Elastic for those who are using the professional plan. You'll have to go through a process to enable it if you want to check that out. And there's also a slew of miscellaneous updates and fixes. So if you use Jetpack, you want to upgrade to 5.4 and take advantage of all the fixes that are available in that release. And Jetpack, everybody loves Jetpack, right? Everybody uses Jetpack plugin. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not the only one that's like tired of Jetpack, right? Are we allowed to say that on the show?
Well, you just did, so let's see what happens.
I don't know. It's like at first it was cool, and I'm like, great, they're bringing some .com services, yada yada. You know, it just feels like it's like this behemoth now, and it's got so much in it, and there's such a push towards premium. Like it's in your face, slapping you around every time you get going to the dashboard. You know, give us money, upgrade, blah blah blah. Which I understand, it's a business. I'm not saying they shouldn't monetize Jetpack. It's just I'm just getting tired of Jetpack. Maybe it's just me. Matt Medeiros, I'll give Matt a shout out because his Patriots are hurting this season. But he did a great episode about this on his show. I'll have to tweet it out. I don't know if you caught that one where he kind of
was it VaultPress, the VaultPress admin notice?
Yeah. So the title of the show, which maybe isn't the best title because it's a bit it's very specific, but he goes into some more stuff around Jetpack, is how to disable Jetpack upsell ads. And it's a quick little, 10-minute audio thing he did, but he really kind of gets into the crux of it and how it, on the surface of Jetpack originally is more about being a community thing and helping everybody out, and it's slowly kind of turned into this, this commercialized behemoth that is, feels a bit overreaching. He makes some good points. I would definitely give it a listen. I'm not saying Jetpack's bad. It's still a great thing for a lot of people. It's just, I don't know. It's turning this big thing, and I'm just getting tired of it.
Well, there you have it.
It's like my opinion, man. I don't know.
You're tired of it. Tired of it. All right. So, and I know the thing I saw regarding Jetpack was that if, let's say you're using, let's say you have a client site and you've already taken care of the security aspects of it, and maybe you're using a different service, and the client sees a admin notice that says, hey, why don't you protect your site using VaultPress? And it's an upsell, it's an ad for VaultPress. Yeah. When in reality, that's all been taken care of for them, and there's no need for them to see that type of upsell. And that could be, that's one of the more upsetting things for the consultants building these sites.
I mean, it looks like maybe they're not doing their job, or maybe they, and it's just a confusion thing.
Or
right?
Maybe the client thinks their site's vulnerable because they've seen this ad.
Not. I agree. I think, one thing that I would love to see in WordPress core, I'm sure this is probably a segment on your show or something. What do you want to see in WordPress core? Everybody loves asking that question. One thing I would say is like a centralized notification API.
Oh, yeah.
Think about like our phones. We have very granular control over notifications, which apps can notify us, how they can notify us, where it shows up. In WordPress, it's literally, I mentioned Wild West earlier. Notifications are like the Wild West. If you've ever added notifications in a plugin, it's crazy. Like it's literally just code on the screen and you put a certain class on it. There's no like API for it. So if there was a more of an API around it, and it would be a big undertaking, but it would allow better control over that. So rather than saying, okay, I have 20 plugins installed, let me figure out what message maybe of these plugins have, or maybe they don't. And then let me see if there's a filter that I can disable it. Like it's unrealistic, it's unrealistic to expect people to do that. So that's why all these notifications show up all the time for people. And then sometimes they're user based. So maybe I dismiss it on mine, but it still shows up on yours and I don't realize that, so it's tough, and as people making WordPress sites, they want to be a good user experience for their user, or even if it's their own site. But imagine logging into a site and there's 10 messages at the top of every screen on the dashboard, and half of them are red. Like you're going to be freaked out, you're going to be concerned, you got to be worried. And it's just unnecessary many times. So yeah. At some point they'll get around to it. I'm sure it's not the highest priority, but a nice notification API, which will allow all these plugins to tap into it. And then we could have a nice notification administration interface where we could kind of toggle that much easier, really have good insight into that. So
yeah, I brought up this idea back in 2016 on it's called the Quest for a Centralized WordPress Notification Center. And again, we talk about this idea of having a notifications API. You know, one of the issues I have with admin notices, amongst others, is that if you're a subscriber, which is a registered user on a site that pretty much can't really do anything. I mean, you see some stuff in the back end for your user account, but even subscribers sometimes can see these notices that are generated by plugins, and you'll click, it'll say something like, click here for more info, dismiss, or do you want to import settings for a specific plugin? You can't do any of that as a subscriber. So it makes no sense. You should not see those notices as a subscriber. And I think a lot of that comes with they're not doing role or capability checks with those notices, which you can do.
What if it gets sensitive information, right? What if it says, hey, there's a version of this plugin, the version you're using is vulnerable. Now you've just told a subscriber something that they probably don't need to know. And it's not saying they're going to do something malicious, but maybe, who knows, you know? So yeah. And you know, that kind of goes back to just, you know, bad coding practices. So like, make sure you trust the plugins you're using. Don't just install a plugin because you think it looks cool, but it has 5 users. Probably not the plugin you want to run on your production site unless you really know the person that did it. You know, use trusted sources, just like anything you put on your website or your computer, but it can happen. So
yeah, that's one of my favorite pastimes is watching Twitter and watching someone say, well, just logged into a client site that I haven't logged into for a few months, and then they show a screenshot of what it looks like, and it's just the whole almost the whole screen is just admin notices from all these plugins.
It's crazy.
Red, green, yellow, upsells.
Some you can't even close. It's like you can't even like get rid of it. You know, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there you have it. Well, that's all I had for today's show in terms of topics, unless you want to bring up something just for the hell of it we could talk about, or we can end the show and you can go back to building cool websites.
Whatever happened to the forum?
So the Tavern forum is, I still have it actually archived. It's I can access it on my site or on my computer when I turn on WAMP, so it's still there. As for the forum, it's just kind of in limbo. I mean, I've been thinking about different ways and ideas on how I can actually put up like a public archive of the old one, or even possibly start a new one on the Tavern. But right now, it's just sort of an idea that's there. But at the very least, I would like somehow, some way to put up a public sort of archive version of what we had before, because there were so many topics and so many cool discussions that were available in that forum that unfortunately so many people can't access right now, or don't even know existed, or can't even link to, because that stuff's not publicly available online. So, but the Tavern forums, man, everyone who was anyone in the WordPress community back in the day was on those forums. It was a cool place.
That was the jam back in the day. Yeah, I mean, archive's cool and all. A lot of that topics and stuff are probably a little stale. Obviously, in the web and technology and open source, things move quick, right? So something we were debating a year ago maybe doesn't even exist anymore today. But yeah, I mean, it would be neat to dig through there, because there's probably posts from a decade ago or close to it, and it's always fun to get a glimpse into things people were talking about, things we were talking about, things we were debating, or
WordPress phoning home to the mothership. Oh my God, privacy, and that turned into a 100-page thread. That was an interesting set of discussions. GPL, that was always a hot topic on the forum. But let me ask you this, just for the heck of it. Do you think if I added a forum to the Tavern today, in light of 20,000 plus member Advanced WordPress Facebook group and all your other different Facebook groups related to WordPress, and some of the other watering holes out there related to WordPress, do you still think there'd be a place for the forum to kind of be successful if we did it again on the Tavern today?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my opinion in terms of conversations and communities and even just kind of how we consume information on the internet is everybody has a preferred method of how they like to consume information, right? Like For example, some people for the tavern probably go straight to the website and just scroll down the page and read articles, right? Other people get it through RSS feeds. Who knows? Other people probably get your, email, automated email, like newsletters, and that's how they like to do it, So there are obviously, like, Post Status has a pretty active Slack thing going on. You have to be a member, but once you're in there, it's pretty active. There are a couple subreddits that are very active. There's the WordPress one, which is big, and I run one called Pro WordPress, which is more advanced topics was kind of the idea. So less of, how do I enable comments, and more of how do I interact with this API type stuff. Again, it's different flavors for different people. So there are forums out there, there are chat rooms, there's Twitter, there's Facebook groups, and everyone consumes things differently. So I think anyone that's been on the web for a number of years always has a sweet spot for forums, because have been using them for ever. Before all this other stuff we just mentioned, it was forums. So I absolutely think it would do well, and it would just be a different medium. And I still think you'd have people that are in these other areas that would still flock to the tavern forums. So bring it back.
I think the comments would put some people off in terms of the forum, but if I have a forum, to me, the forum would provide the tools necessary to have the type of community that would be welcoming as it was back in the day, as opposed to comments or even, allowing anonymous stuff, which you're just asking for trouble, allowing anonymous comments.
And I remember we were talking years ago about one of the refreshes of the tavern, and there was the idea floating around of replacing comments with forum threads. So
get on it, Triple J.
So every blog post would have a thread in the forum for that post, and the comments would be conversations in the forum. So you're not monitoring two different sections of your website. You're just monitoring your forum, which I think is a pretty genius idea. You still get that interaction. You can still show it on the post. You can still have threaded discussions in a sense, but you get the power of a forum rather than just the basic commenting system. So, and supposedly that's going to be in accounts. So, you can kind of vet the people that are leaving those comments or the forum threads messages. So
supposedly it's supposed to be in BBPress 2.7, but who knows when that's going to be released? Sorry, John. But he'll laugh. He knows I give him hell all the time about that. He knows what's up. So before we get out of here, before we wrap it up on this excellent edition of WordPress Weekly, do you got any projects in the cooker over there at Web Dev Studios, or any cool major projects you want to talk about before we go?
Yeah, so I actually have a bar trick.
Oh.
Let me show you a bar trick.
That brings back memories.
Yeah, actually it's not a bar trick. But I wanted to play that before I left. I have a pick of the week, and it's actually a little self-promotional, but what's the point of being on a podcast if you're not promoting yourself a little bit?
That's right. I agree with
so that. we are, but it is there's value to it for people. So we're doing this new initiative over at Maintain with 2 N's. We do a lot of maintenance and support for smaller WordPress sites, but what we're doing is an Ask Maintain event on Twitter. I did one about a month ago. It was fun, and essentially we have a hashtag Ask Maintain with 2 N's. We are going to have our director of client services available, and we'll be answering any and all WordPress questions on Twitter. Any question you got, send it our way. It's not just Jim will be leading it up, but he has the resources of our entire company behind him. So even if it's super technical or super basic, we want to answer it. So it's going to be tomorrow. So this will be Thursday, October 5th at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Hashtag is Ask Maintain with 2 N's. And if you just check out Maintain on Twitter, obviously you'll see some more information about that. So bring your questions. We're going to be here to help. We're going to kind of keep it a regular thing because we think it's fun. We like to contribute. We like to give back. This is just another way that we want to help. We want to answer your questions. So if you have any burning WordPress questions, and Jeffro is not picking up the call when you call him, then hit us up on Twitter. We'll see if we can help you out.
Yeah. I think people have been experiencing a lot of busy signals, or this number's been disconnected when they call me lately.
You're on the blacklist.
Yes. Yeah, pretty sweet. And as Web Dev Studio, I mentioned this before on Twitter. I kind of gave you a shout out towards your company. I keep saying, but the 5 for the Future program that Matt sort of mentioned, and that sort of was created this kerfluffle. I've seen Web Dev Studios and its employees advertise the things that they're working on and the little pet projects with the Five for the Future hashtag. And Web Dev Studios seems to be one of the few companies out there that really expresses their, I guess, sort of devotion to the initiative, I guess would be a way to say it. I don't see too many other companies out there, using the Five for the Future hashtag in terms of the contributions that they're working on or giving back towards the WordPress space. So are you guys still heavily involved with that? Or do you still have sort of the Five for the Future thing going on at Web Dev Studios?
Yeah, I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but we obviously are the coolest company out there in the WordPress space. So, but yeah, we still do, was there a kerfluffle around it? I don't like where people like, how could you complain?
I think it was more or less, what is 5%? How do you value 5%? How much does 5% cost my company? And, things of that nature.
Right. And that is like stupid, like get back to the point of contributing. That's how I look at it. Right. So when we do Five for the Future, and essentially the way it works at our company now, and we've done some various iterations, and I've written some blog posts about it on our blog on WebDev about different changes we've done to try to figure out a way to really make it work. We used to do 1 day a month where the whole company contributed. That was tricky from a scheduling standpoint. Having the entire company not doing client work for a full day was tough. So now we do it on a rotation between teams. So 1 or 2 teams a week will have a Five for the Future full day, usually on a Friday. But we work it around projects and stuff. So the idea is everybody in the company will have 1 day a month to contribute. And when we say contribute, it's very open. As long as it's something we're publicly giving back to the community, we consider that contributing. So it could be coding and releasing a plugin. It could be, we sometimes we'll dive into the support forums and just answer questions. Or we have a number of team members that organize meetups and WordCamps, and they'll spend the day working on that. We actually have Shannon, one of our front-end developers, is working to start up a new meetup group in her area. There isn't one. So she's kind of working through that process and, talking to people and kind of getting an outline of how it's going to work and, the topics and things like that. So, we give back in a number of different ways. When we say Five for the Future, it's just a way that, Matt kind of put the call out there for the community. And it's just something that it's an easy way for us to kind of promote and track and really promote what our people are doing. And you look at all these other agencies and all these other companies, and they're all giving back, right? They're all doing stuff. They all have public plugins and projects, and they're in core, and they're all giving back. They're just, not doing it under the Five for the Future hashtag, which is probably the only difference. But the way I look at it is, are we giving exactly 5%? I think last year we totaled it up, and it was around 1,500 hours that we tracked, give or take here or there. There's plenty of stuff that we do that we're not sitting there tracking. There's plenty of contributing that we do that, if someone's organizing a WordCamp and spending all weekend at the WordCamp, we're not tracking that, right? But they're there all weekend, giving back. So approximately, it wasn't 5%. It was, 3.5 or 4, somewhere around there. But the point is we're giving back, you know what I mean? So whether it's 5% or 10% or 1%, just give back. Like, it's open source community. That's why we're here. That's why WordPress is here. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just help each other. That's why this community is so great, because everybody truly, most people get that and they love doing it, and they want to share their knowledge and share their experiences and share their code and their plugins and whatever it is. So I think it's silly if people are arguing about that. The idea is just give back in some way. And this just happens to be how we do it.
And the last thing here before we wrap it up, do you have any organization duties and whatnot this year for WordCamp Philly? And will you be at WordCamp Philly, and what other events, WordPress events, will you be at in the near future?
Yeah, so I am doing nothing in terms of organizing or volunteering at WordCamp Philly, which is weird. So I was an organizer for the first 5 that we had, as well as a co-organizer, as well as for WordCamp US the last 2 years in Philly. So 7 WordCamps, 2 massive, I felt like I had, I felt like I'd kind of done my time, so to speak, but I also felt like it's important that, the communities, especially ones that have been around in certain areas for a while, it's good to get fresh meat, fresh ideas, fresh faces into the group. And it can be easy to kind of keep on doing the same thing over and over and over. Like, yeah, I could have co-organized again and, done it. It's, we've done it 5 times. This is the 6th year. But I was like, you know what? One, I have a son now. He's 2. It's harder for me to find a lot of free time in the evenings and on weekends because I want to spend time with him. And he's a handful. So it's like I can't have a computer on my lap, if he's around. Like, it just doesn't work. So that was part of it, but also part of it, I felt like it was time to get some fresh faces in there, some new people. So I stepped back. I officially just said I'm not gonna do it. They did get me on a panel, so I was like, I'll show up and be on a panel. Cool, that'll be fun. I like panels. But that's it. It's gonna be weird because I'm not doing. That's it. I'm not doing anything. So I will be at WordCamp Philly. I will be at a panel. There are costumes. So it is a Halloween theme. They are encouraging costumes. Halloween is kind of my thing, so I will definitely be in a costume of some sort. And then I will certainly be at WordCamp US as well. So in December, Nashville, looking forward to getting some hot chicken.
Yep, I will. If everything goes well, I'll finish up with my therapy in time and take care of the accommodations. I will be there in December as well for WordCamp US. I'm highly anticipating Matt's State of the Word. And basically, the project status, the JavaScript issues, and whatever else he brings up in the State of the Word. I'm very much looking forward to it.
That is the event. I mean, and I'm especially excited because it's the first U.S. in a new city. And obviously the first one I wasn't a part of from an organizational standpoint. So I'm just going as an attendee. And so I'm excited to experience it as a normal attendee rather than running behind the scenes, like a crazy organizer. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So how can people keep in touch with you, follow you on the Twitters and everywhere else you are? What if I wanted to stalk you? How would I do that?
Twitters. I'm on Twitter, Williams BA. Yeah, I mean, stalk me on Twitter.
Do you still blog and write stuff at strangework.com?
No, I'm terrible. I set a New Year's resolution to blog once a week. For the
how'd that go?
52 blog posts. I think I got 2 in. And that was it. Like, how terrible is that? How bad is that? I didn't even go a whole month. That's how pathetic I am at blogging. Like, it's bad. I don't know. I need to get back into it. I keep saying that again. It's the whole time thing, man. Like, it's once you have kids and they're young, it's a game changer. So it's hard to find a lot of time. It's an excuse. I could do it if I really wanted to. So that's an excuse. Maybe next year I'll re-up that blogging. I went from 100. One year I was like, I want to do 100. I did like 10. The next year I'm like, all right, I'll be more realistic. 1 a week. That's not that bad. I did 3.
That's the way it goes.
Can't quite get back into the rhythm.
Oh man. So this is going to do it for this week's edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on wptavern.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro, JEFFR0. And until next week, everybody have a safe, enjoyable rest of the week. We'll be back again next Wednesday afternoon to talk more WordPress goodness. Until then, everybody, so long. Say bye, Brad. There you go.
Bye, Brad.